Hello everyone, my name is Mark Edward Blanton with The Real South Africa.
And I am Dr. Latasha Blanton, also with The Real South Africa.
We have an amazing group trip that you will be interested in. It's with the African Diaspora News Channel. A great YouTube channel gives you great information about what's going on in Africa. But we have a group trip featuring Phil Scott, the host.
And the trip is going to take place on March 16th to the 25th. It's going to go to Johannesburg and Cape Town, and It's in 2022. If you're interested in traveling, please send an email to info@therealsouthafrica.com.
And we'll see you here in sunny South Africa.
A classically trained piano prodigy, Nina Simone blended musical genres to become one of the most respected musicians of the 20th century. Her shift to music that expressly demanded equality for Black Americans made her a hero to some and an enemy to others. Despite this, Simone remained steadfast in her beliefs, leaving behind a lasting musical and social legacy. Nina Simone was born Eunice Catherine Wyman in February 1933 in Tryon, North Carolina, the sixth of 8 children. Her mother was a Methodist minister and a part-time domestic worker, and her father himself an entertainer who supported his family, working a number of jobs. Exposed to the music of her mother's church while a toddler, Simone was accompanying her mother's sermon by the age of 3. At the age of 5, she began taking piano lessons paid for by one of her mother's white employers, with a local teacher who introduced her to classical music. Simone would later write in her autobiography that her family rarely discussed race at home, and that she had grown up in a relatively integrated town. But she was not inhuman to the degradation and cruelty of the Jim Crow South. One incident occurred during a recital when she was 11, when her parents were forced to give up their front row seat to a white couple. Eunice stood her ground, refusing to pray until her parents were returned to the front row. The pain of the moment was a revelation of sort, and she later wrote that I felt I had frayed, and every slide, real or imagined, cut me raw. But the skin grew back a little tougher, a little less innocent, and a little more black. After graduating from high school, Simone spent a summer at New York's Gillian School, preparing for her ultimate goal, admission to the prestigious Curtis Institute of Music. She was so certain of acceptance that her parents moved to Philadelphia to be close to her dream conservatory. She was crushed when the program rejected her, and for the rest of her life believed that race played a key role, saying, "I knew I was good enough, but it turned me down. And it took me about 6 months to realize it was about race, and so it was because I was Black. I never really got over that jolt of racism at the time." Desperate for work, she took a job as a pianist in Atlantic City, changing her name to now Nina Simone so that her disapproving parents wouldn't know she was working in a nightclub. An employer would only hire her if she agreed to sing as well as play piano. And she began a period of musical reinvention, combining her deep love for classical music with jazz, swing, and popular music of the era. But as she began to build her career, she cautiously avoided racism, sexism, and other politically charged topics in the music. And she seemed dismissive of the folk and protest music that had become the soundtrack of the early civil rights movement. But as Simone avoided politics on stage, she was becoming increasingly political outstage. While living in New York City, she had befriended Black cultural leaders and writers like James Baldwin, Langston Hughes, and Lauryn Ashbery. Simone and Ashbel quickly formed a close bond, and the playwright, whose A Raisin in the Sun had explored the difficulties of black life in the 20th century America, became a teacher of a sort. As Simone later wrote, "We never talked about men or clothes. It was always Marx, Lenin, or revolution. Real girls talk." On Sunday, September the 15th of 1963, a bombing by white extremists at the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama, killed 4 young black girls attending a Sunday school. Simone, preparing for an upcoming series of club dates, was heartbroken and incensed. She later admitted that her first instinct was violence. "At first I tried to make myself a gun. I gathered some materials. I was going to take one of them out and didn't care who it was," she later said. By the urging of her then husband, she fueled her anger and grief into music. In under an hour, she wrote one of her most famous songs, Mississippi Garden, whose title was inspired in part by the assassination of civil rights leaders Medgar Evers in the state earlier that summer. The song's upbeat tempo did little to temper the intensity of the song's lyrics, which attacked the slow pace of racial justice in America and the continued centuries-long oppression of and violence against black Americans. She would revisit and revise the song's lyrics in the coming years and incorporate later incidences of racial injustice in cities across the country. Reaction to the song was mixed. Many of the primarily white audiences Simone initially performed in front of seemed uneasy or didn't grasp the severity of the situation she described. Others, particularly in the South, had a much more visceral reaction. There were protests, the song was banned in several states, and there were numerous instances of people destroying copies of the record itself. Many African Americans applauded Simone for giving voice to their pain and urges. As comedian and activist Dick Gregory later said, "If you look at all the suffering black folks went through, not one black man would dare say Mississippi Garden. We all wanted to say it, she said it." The song struck a chord especially with organizers both black and white who flooded Mississippi the following year to lead a black voter registration drive known as Mississippi Freedom Summer. While many civil rights leaders supported the more cautious, integrationist, and nonviolent approach of Martin Luther King Jr., Simone's political leanings were more aligned with those calling for a more extreme response. She met Dr. King for the first time in 1965 after performing for marchers making their way from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama, many of whom had been brutally assaulted just a few days earlier during the infamous Bloody Sunday. Simone was vocal in her debut about his more moderate approach, only to be reassured by an understanding King. She was a supporter of Malcolm X, and though she never met him, she would later become neighbors and friends with his wife, Betty Chavez, while living in Mount Vernon, New York. Her work was praised by other radical black leaders, including Stokely Carmichael, who had split with more moderate civil rights groups in favor of a black nationalism, giving rise to the Black Power movement. Simone embraced a new personal style as well, wearing her previously straightened hair in a more natural Afro style and adopting a new Afrocentric wardrobe as well. Always self-conscious of the particular barriers faced by darker-skinned black Americans like herself, she wrote songs challenging these notions, including the 1966's For Women, which depicted the effect of stereotyped colorism on black women. Some black radio stations refused to play the song, reflecting the division between black Americans themselves over the issue of civil rights and deeply wounding Simone. While she had never been a chart-topping artist, Simone built a very successful career, which began fluttering in the late 1960s as some audiences and music executives buckled at what they saw as her strident and angry music as a persona. A violently turbulent marriage and increasing mental health issues, including Ben and diagnosed bipolar disorder, took their toll as well. So did the 1965 death of Ashbury at the age of 35 and that of Dr. King in 1968. Though she had differed with him on tactics, she was deeply affected by his death. The following summer, she honored both Ashbury and King during the performance at the Harlem Culture Festival. She played a song in memory of King written by her bass player and turned parts of the unfinished Ashbury play into a new song that would become a civil rights anthem, covered by Aretha Franklin and others. Young, gifted, and black, the performance also included a section where Simone, unwaveringly in her determination to improve the lives of Black Americans, exhorted the audience to use any means necessary, even violence, to achieve their goals. That same year, during an appearance on the PBS news magazine, Black Journal, Simone noted, "An artist's duty, as far as I am concerned, is to reflect the times. That to me is my duty. And at this crucial time in our lives when everything is so desperate, when every day is a matter of survival, I don't think you can help but be involved." In 1974, following years of battle with the IRS over back taxes she had refused to pay, in part to protest the Vietnam War, and with her recording career in the slide, Simone left America. She lived in Liberia before settling in France, where her trying financial and emotional difficulties worsened. She grew increasingly disenchanted with the state of race relations in the United States, lamenting the loss of prominent civil rights leaders and what she considered the movement's decline. Despite a belief uptick in interest in her music in the decade before her 2003 death, Simone's legacy as both a musical artist and a civil rights pioneer was often left out of the history books. In more recent years, her contribution has been reappraised with a flood of books and documentaries showcasing both her imparable talent and contribution to the struggle of racial and gender equality. And she noted in her memoir, "When I go, I'm going to know that I left something for my people to build on. That is my reward." And that is the story of Nina Simone, who used her music to contribute immensely on the equality of Black people. My name is Osie The Born Child. Hey, come down in the comment section and let me know what you think. Until next time, I'll be seeing you, dear brothers and sisters, in another video. But until then, please don't forget to subscribe. Love you all.
Living in America as a Black person, you recognize there is one set of laws for you and one set of laws for those, especially in the white community. In our book, Passive Aggressive Racism in the System of White Supremacy, I take you through times in my life when I first started noticing white supremacy. We teach you how to recognize it, identify it, and also counter it in our book. This book is a beginner's course for those that are just starting to wake up and open their eyes to see the system of white supremacy. As a Black American person, you must understand this system because this system is life or death to you. How you handle it, how you deal with it, it can affect your mental health if you don't understand this system. Pick up our book, Passive Aggressive Racism and the System of White Supremacy, today on Amazon.